The House Select Committee investigating the Capitol riot wrapped its first series of public hearings on Thursday.
We have far more evidence to share with the American people and more to gather.
The committee was formed in the wake of the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol in order to find out what happened.
The 8 televised hearings aim to make the case that former President Donald Trump was accountable for the attack and that it was the result of a multi-pronged conspiracy. Trump has said he's done nothing wrong and has called the committee a partisan witch hunt. The journal's Scott Patterson explains how the committee has presented evidence they say shows that Trump failed to intervene after setting the stage for the riot, promoted baseless accusations of election fraud, and led a pressure campaign to overturn the 2020 election. The committee's latest primetime session zeroed in on Trump's activities inside the White House during the 187 minutes after he gave his speech at the Ellipse on January 6. According to live and recorded testimony on Thursday, Trump spent more than 2.5 hours in front of a television in his private dining room as rioters breached the Capitol.
What people were really asking President Trump to do, including his own family and top officials in the White House, was for him to put out a statement to the rioters to stop and leave the Capitol building.
If the president had wanted to make a statement and address the American people, he could have been on camera almost instantly.
The committee also played outtakes from a video recorded at the White House on January 7, 2021, which showed that the former president still refused to concede that he lost the election.
This election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
It was the first time in the history of the United States that we did not have a peaceful transfer of power.
Cassidy Hutchinson, a one-time aide to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, testified in an earlier hearing that Trump knew that his supporters were armed when he urged them to march to the Capitol. Hutchinson said Trump was briefed about the presence of weapons at the rally, but was concerned that magnetometers were keeping supporters from attending.
I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away.
Despite knowing all this, he stands before them and says, go to the Capitol.
The committee played never-before-seen footage of rioters breaching the building as officers braced for the assault. Testimony from Capitol Police Officer Caroline Edwards described the attacks as a war scene.
I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood.
The goal of that was to really show to the American public, many of whom may not have seen footage like this before, how violent it was.
Stephen Ayers, a former Trump supporter who pleaded guilty to breaching the Capitol, testified that he initially had no intention of going there on the 6th.
Basically, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody to head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
Video showed rioters reading a tweet sent by Trump that criticized then Vice President Mike Pence for refusing to block the Electoral College count.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution.
The committee detailed the potential peril to Pence, who became a clear target of the mob.
Bring out Pence! Bring out Pence!
The crowds surged and within 1 minute of Trump's tweet, made it to one floor below where Pence was waiting off the Senate floor.
Vice President Pence and his team ultimately were led to a secure location where they stayed for the next 4.5 hours, barely missing rioters a few feet away.
The main point that the committee was trying to make with this is how Trump has this power over his followers, and they do what he says, and he knows that.
According to videotaped depositions, Trump was told repeatedly by top Justice Department officials and members of his inner circle that he hadn't won the 2020 election and that claims of voter fraud were without merit.
I told him that it was crazy stuff.
Trump continued to spread election fraud claims, including ones that election workers brought a suitcase full of fake ballots into an Atlanta voting facility.
Evidence of fraud is overwhelming, and again, I'm going to ask you to look up at that very, very powerful and very expensive screen.
Hidden cases of possible ballots are rolled out from under a table. 4 people under a cloud of suspicion.
Gabriel Sterling, a top Republican Georgia election official, addressed the claims in testimony to the committee.
What it actually showed was Fulton County election workers engaging in normal ballot processing.
Testimony from Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger detailed requests by Trump aimed at overturning the election results.
Look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
There were no votes to find. That was an accurate count that had been certified.
Ruby Freeman, who was a Georgia election worker, also testified about how she received threats so severe that at one point she went into hiding after Trump accused her of participating in voter fraud.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you?
The public hearings laid out the committee's view of the attack on the Capitol as a watershed historical moment for American democracy and a red alarm for threats it could face in the future.
What they're saying is that they continue to hear from new witnesses. We don't know who these people are, but we're being told that there's enough to merit further hearings.
Members of the January 6th committee have indicated they believe Trump broke the law when he attempted to overturn the 2020 presidential election, but they have no power to initiate a criminal investigation.
They can't make charges, that's not their role, but it is the role of the DOJ.
The Justice Department is conducting its own parallel investigation into the January 6th attack.
We are seeing signs that the investigation is widening and potentially looking at individuals in Trump's inner circle. Although as of yet, we don't have any sign that the DOJ is looking at Mr. Trump himself.